Feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Welcome back to another episode of The Shrimp Tank. We come to you virtually from Seattle and the entire, at least today as we record this, rainy and windy Pacific Northwest. Listen, if you want to learn how to start, grow, or run a successful business, you, my friend, have come to the right place. This is where we say street smarts and book smarts collide. Hello again, everyone. I'm Dan Weedin, and I'm joined by my co-host, Michelle Bomberger. Our guest today is Derek Kalles. Derek is the CEO of Kalles Group, a Seattle-based leader in cybersecurity and tech consulting, celebrated for its rapid growth and exceptional culture by giants like the Puget Sound Business Journal and Inc. magazine. Recognized as a 40 under 40 luminary, Derek's diverse expertise spans tech, real estate, and professional services. Now, he's not just about bits and bytes. His heart beats for philanthropy as well, focusing on bettering children's lives, exemplified by his work with Treehouse. Now, when he's off duty, Derek unwinds with his family or on road trips in his Airstream. Michelle, we may have to dig into some of the places he's gone on his Airstream. Derek, welcome to the show. We will be right with you. Everyone, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. That's right. We're on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and of course, YouTube. You can say we are ubiquitous. Now, before we bring on Derek, Michelle, I hope you're staying dry, at least where I am. It is wet outside.
Yeah, we've been flip-flopping here in the Pacific Northwest from 70 degrees to 50 and rainy and back and forth. So I think there's some joy in that 70 degrees though.
Oh, I enjoyed that. I think I got tan. I didn't even put sunscreen on. Hey, listen, I'm really excited to talk to Derek today because I have really gone whole hog into AI and things like ChatGPT. You and I have talked about this. I have found, especially even as little as running this podcast and using the advantages and the tools that AI brings in research and finding the title for something I've written or checking my work, all sorts of things. I literally have it up and I'm using it every day. And so I have a lot of excitement for it. I get it. I'm a risk management guy. I know there's cause for concern, and we're going to talk a lot about that with Derek today. I just find that from an excitement level, it's new and it's fun, and heck, I can create even children's stories for my grandchildren. I want to ask you, from your perspective, not only as an attorney, but as a business owner, what scares you the most? And what excites you the most about AI?
Well, it's fun because you and I are both in the risk management space, right? So, our immediate response is, okay, be careful, everyone be careful. But I think we're both also in the visionary space where there's the potential that's out there that is just immense. And so it's hard for me to hold back from the potential because I just see the opportunity for my own business. On the scary side, obviously, we have the confidentiality issues around, as a business owner and as a lawyer, being really, really cautious and making sure that we're putting guardrails on for our team, encouraging them to use it, but also making sure those guardrails are in place so there are limitations and guidelines for them. I did have my very first, hey, we created this contract from ChatGPT. And there's going to be more of that, and that's a little scary. So how do we balance out the opportunity and the risk of doing such things? But there'll be a learning curve there. From the excitement standpoint, we're already kind of embarking on what kinds of tools can we put in place to make our team more efficient? How do we embrace this? How do we provide training, to more junior attorneys who aren't going to be like in the nuts and bolts of documents anymore, at least looking 2 to 3 to 5 years out. How do we make sure that they're really well trained and that they have the tools they need to do the legal work when they're not having to do that hustle that the rest of us have had to do? So I think there's just huge opportunity for our business to kind of embrace this, to be more efficient and to provide better value and a more cost-effective solution to clients. So super exciting.
Well, and I think we're gonna have an exciting show today. You introduced Derek to me, and he's gonna be on the show, and I'm excited. Derek, we have a lot to talk about. I'm gonna really ask you the same question. And by the way, I love your website. I was doing some searching on you, excuse me, in preparation. You have a great website, very robust, with a whole lot of great articles and things like that. People should see it. But I'll ask you the same thing from your point of view. As you are a cybersecurity expert, what scares you the most and what most excites you?
I think Michelle really hit on it well in terms of that starting point of what scares me. It is, I think at a corporate level, it's that confidentiality component. And then, then we're back to talking about data, and it really goes to the intent and what people are going to do with it. Unfortunately, there's nefarious folks out there, and some of them truly that is their job, is to attack, and others that's maybe well-intentioned people and organizations trying to innovate with a data set in a way that really kind of breaks both integrity and professional norms, right? And I think that leads me to where I'm most excited, is that this is going to force us to think differently, to operate differently. And I think about the next generation, and my hope and excitement is for all of us here in the throes of growth in our professional careers. But then I think about that generation behind us and teaching my kids. And I look at, the invent of social media, and, in the aggregate, the impacts it's had on our world, but the places we didn't know how to prepare ourselves and prepare that next generation with the data that came from that. And I hope from that model, we learn how to teach our kids. And I'm excited about the implications it can have to help them in storytelling, creativity, breaking through barriers that, we've never been able to break through, help harness the strengths of innovation. And I get to see that as I'm trying to teach my kids not only how to use ChatGPT or Dahlia, but also the ethics around it and the importance of, we don't understand all of this. Let's talk about how we're going to think about it, not even just how we're going to use it. So I think this is a game changer, and we're just starting. There is a long ways to go.
Well, and it's multiplying at such an exponential rate, right? This has been, really actively talked about for such a short period of time. And if you haven't been involved in it, you're already so far behind, right? It's just amazing how quickly this is kind of permeating our existence. I love the conversations with people about how it can grow their creativity, right? It's not only work, but this is something that can actually enhance our lives in so many ways. So I'm curious, because when I work with clients and we talk about cyber risk, just kind of going back to the basics, the default is usually, oh yeah, we have an insurance policy for that, right? And you and I have talked enough to know that that's not enough. So let's go back to the basics, and then maybe grow into like where AI fits into this, but just the basics of cybersecurity from, just the average business out there. What should we be thinking about? How are the risks morphing? And how should we be thinking about it and attacking it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, right? And yeah, unfortunately, that classic, we have insurance, so I'm okay answer is far too prevalent. And before stepping into the AI elements of it, I think the foundational truth is cybersecurity is very much about the health and securing the future of your organization, very much like managing your risk, managing your financial situation, managing your taxes, managing your, having good legal counsel, reviewing all the elements of the business that flow through whatever you're building or serving. Cybersecurity is in that same vein now. It's not something you can just turn on and off, right? So, the basics of having having a security program in place at a technology level, having the processes right-sized to your organization. It doesn't need to be monolithic, but having that, the processes in place of when an issue happens, what to do. And then the number one threat is still our people. Our greatest asset is our people, and our greatest threat is our people, right? And many times it's well-intentioned. It's not, it's not necessarily what we would call the bad actor inside of the business, right? It is, oops, I clicked on this. Oops, I thought it was you. Oops, I was tricked. Oops, I forgot to, toggle that button and now we're exposed, right? So I think insurance is a must. Compliance with that insurance is critical. It's very much, if you're not, just like your health, if you're not doing your health checks, you don't want to have that denial of coverage. And then it's recognizing that it's an investment in your future. Cyber really is in that paradigm now. Years ago, it wasn't. You're investing in your future, and whatever path you're on, whatever industry you're on, whatever space you're in, it doesn't matter. And then this is where the AI component comes into. AI is only advancing what the threat actors can do at scale. They don't have to just attack the large organizations. They can attack really where we're seeing it is in healthcare. We're seeing it in nonprofits. We're seeing it in the mid-market. And it's not just your standard, phishing type situations. It's, social engineering. It is spoofing voices. It's being able to do things at scale and in a way that there's no longer you read the email and don't, that's absolutely not Michelle or Dan. It's, wow, that sounds very much like them, and they're taking bios from people's LinkedIn, using that as a reference at scale to write emails to organizations that have the tone of the people that they're trying, they're trying to impersonate. So I never like to lead with fear. AI is going to make this worse in some places. And from a capability perspective, it's going to make us stronger. But what any business leader and business owner should hear is that this is about your future, and you have to invest inside. You have to invest in a right-sized cyber program for your organization.
Derek, you're one of those guests that I've already got 10 questions for you, and you've only spoken for a few minutes. I want to go back to something that you said on the previous answer that really got my attention, and it was about the ethics of AI. And I thought about that as you were saying it, and I thought, when we talk about being ethical, in almost everything else, there is a standard of norms that have been built over generation that this is ethical behavior. And we know that, and we can teach our children and everybody else this is ethical behavior. When it comes to AI, it's moving at such a rapid pace. We don't even know what's potentially unethical in the future. How do we go about teaching not only our kids, but let's just say our employees and those that we have leadership over? How do we teach ethics around AI when it's moving so fast?
I mean, it's a challenge in itself. I mean, I think you're asking that $1 million question, and I try to come back to at a principle level, which, I think in many respects, they don't change, right? It's asking yourself those kind of first order principles around integrity, impact on others, unintended consequences, cost of doing versus cost of not doing, and I'm speaking to two risk professionals here. There might be some things here that resonate with you on how you advise, right? So I not to demean in any way, but I feel like the way I'm talking to both my third grader and my fifth grader about it, and the way my senior leadership team and I are all talking about it, is at the same level. And I think having that grassroots, rudimentary, foundational, whichever word works for you, of going, let's just ask us those good human questions. And it might mean we still should do it because, but it's going to disrupt a lot of people's jobs. Okay, well, let's at least ask that question. How is it going to impact people, right? And that might force good action like advanced communication and planning, or, right sizing within an organization, but just, integrity, impact, cost of doing, cost of not doing, unintended consequence, right? Kind of bringing back to those layers is helping us help large organizations navigate AI, both from a productivity lens, but also that security / risk / even go as far as stewardship level.
Yeah, you mentioned the people side of it a few times. I actually really love that, both on the, being very human about the impacts, because there are a lot of fear around certain kinds of
Absolutely.
jobs going away. And as we, embark upon AI in our businesses, what does that mean to our employees, and being kind of open in our communication there, I think, is valuable. As far as the ethics piece, I'm wondering if you see it kind of playing out, similarly as data privacy has played out, that, you're getting the government kind of putting their toes in and trying to figure out how do they regulate this. Data privacy in the US is a patchwork of rules now.
Yeah.
Are you seeing kind of the government getting involved? What does that look like? And again, I want to go back to the how-to for an average business. Like, what should we be looking out for, and what should we be doing to make sure the toggles are checked, make sure the guidelines are in place, make sure people know what to do, because it is getting more and more sophisticated. So I'm kind of curious what you're seeing on the regulatory front, but then kind of going back to the practical front of, the average business, what does planning look like? What does preparation look like?
I think on the macro trends, very much akin to, the reactions associated with privacy, right? And you hit the nail on the head with calling it patchwork. As it relates to, security, cybersecurity, as it relates to the overlay of AI, that public-private partnership is going to continue to come together, and it is very unknown, but the force is not going to go away. So, how the organizations like the FBI, the broader US government, the Department of Defense, the DOJ, specific sub-organizations in the, public area, like, InfraGard, how they're involved in this, it is still a lot to be determined. But what is happening is everyone is leaning into, this is not something where it can just be a regulatory agency, an NGO, nonprofit, public sector, industry specific. I mean, this is something that is far too pervasive, or just, consumer based or B2B. So I think then to pivot to your question of, okay, well, what does that mean for us? I'm just, trying to build this product, I'm trying to run this company, build this service. I can't be an expert in all these things. I think that's where, very much having a great CPA, having a great lawyer, a little bit of a self-serving comment here. You got to have a good security partner, right? You really do, because we are fighting every day to stay on top of the winds of change, and this is our day to day, right? And another trend I'm seeing, and I always like to look at the cross sections of what enterprises are doing, and then what mid-market is doing, and then how that impacts many of us is growing small businesses or smaller businesses, which is still a large envelope in terms of size, is you're seeing more of a decentralized thinking. It's not, I'm going to build this security team. It's, I need to have security at the forefront of our culture in the right dose relative to our business, industry, et cetera. And we're going to have certain people as a part of our team internally, and we're going to have great partnerships, because then what you're seeing is cybersecurity can't also just be a Kalles Group thing. It needs to be your general counsel. It needs to be your insurance agency. It needs to be, frankly, your financial partner. And the only person that is really going to have that vested interest is that leadership team. It's the people in the organization. It's your company. And you really have to, almost at a cultural level, say cybersecurity is a part of our being, and we are going to be talking to all of our partners and be working with them in a way that has that ongoing presence for us as an organization. And that is, if you had to hear the 1 and 2, it's make it a part of your culture. It's a part of investing in your future. And then that next step is looking at all your partners that you've already got. I'm going to assume they're all great, and be talking to them about how security is a part of what they're already providing to you. And if it's not, how it can be.
Well, speaking of partners, Derek, we got to pay the bills for our partners. We're going to take a short break to hear from today's Spotlight sponsor. And when we come back with our guest, Kalles, for our hot or not section of the show, we're going to talk to him a little bit more about employee education. Don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank.
At Equinox, we believe in the power of law to give business leaders the freedom and confidence to go boldly into the unknown. Entrepreneurs don't trust that lawyers can be affordable, accessible, or offer a strategic advantage. Law feels like a complicated cost that only the megacorps can afford, so they often go at it alone. We imagine a world where entrepreneurs have the same strategic advantage of law as the megacorps. Equinox makes it possible for all business leaders to have a general counsel in their team to support both strategic and tactical legal needs, knowing where you've been and where you're going, and guiding you on how best to achieve your goals, while protecting what you've built, with an all-inclusive, fixed-price legal solution tailored to your business. There's no more worry about how much legal will cost or if you'll even get a response. Instead, you have a relationship with your legal team, access to legal support whenever you need it, and the freedom and confidence to take your business boldly forward. Our relationship starts with a complimentary business health assessment. Complete the 5-minute survey at equinox.law, and you'll immediately get a 30-page report to help you and your team prioritize the legal infrastructure you need to move your business forward. Plus a complimentary consultation with our corporate counsel to walk through the report together and understand what your business needs now and for its future. Now's the time to invest in your business and go boldly forward with legal on your team. Equinox Business Law Group, strategic legal counsel for all.
Well, welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, where we interview the best and brightest CEOs and business thought leaders in the greater Puget Sound area and beyond. I'm Michelle Bomberger here with my co-host, Dan Weedin, and our guest today, Kalles with the Kalles Group. For our next segment, we're going to kick off Hot or Not.
All right, Derek, I think you may have seen enough of our show to know that we've got this segment where Michelle and I are going to pepper you with questions. We're going to ask you if a topic is hot or not, and then why or why not. At the end, you win absolutely nothing, but we hope you have some fun. I mentioned employee education. You had mentioned it. I think this is a layup, an easy one for the first one. So I'll just say hot or not, employee education when it comes to best practices. And if for some reason it is hot, what is the best way for business owners to make sure that the education is sound?
Absolutely hot, and make it approachable, darn near do I say fun, make it bite-sized, and make it, a part of the daily existence. No windowless conference room, 4-hour being talked at training.
All right. Hot or not, phishing scams in the way that we traditionally have seen them?
Not. I believe that the sophistication of phishing is on a hockey stick of where threat actors are going with it, and a huge part of that acceleration is AI. They're able to use far more sophisticated methods, more tailored, more successful, and we already know that they've been very successful, and that is why it the traditional view is not. The where it's going to go is a very hot topic.
Hot or not, as it relates, I think, maybe to both security and an entrepreneurial standpoint, AI video.
Say that's hot, right? I think the why is more based on instinct than actual, my personal experiences, but I just see how AI is overlaying over so many different types of contents, different scenarios in organizations, both good outcomes as well as nefarious outcomes. And video is so compelling and can be so move the dial that it'd be hard for me to argue that it's not hot, argue against it being hot.
No, and I just a quick follow-up. I think it's amazing. The whole thing around it just amazes me. Does it add a bigger though concern? Because I know sometimes videos and things can be that entry route for phishing or ransomware attacks. Does that increase it at all, or is it just the same as any other video?
No, I think you helped me find my word. Video is persuasive. I mean, when you look at what causes people to engage, just content strategy, marketing, it is video, it is imagery, that's how our brain processes. It's not ones and zeros, right? It is, imagery stored, right? So I think AI and video is hot because of not only what we know, but what we don't know that can come from this, the innovation that's going to come from it. And that innovation doesn't just exist with creative firms. It exists with firms entirely designed to attack us, right?
All right, hot or not, humanity and humility in leadership.
I sure hope it's hot. I think, Skynet has not become self-aware yet that we know of. I hope the human element of who we are as leaders and the impact we have on each other and organizations is at the forefront. And when you think about seeking humility, we never are at a state of being humble, right? We are seeking it. That is a part of all of us. It's a part of leadership. It's a part of what drives us to grow and be better people and have an impact in this short amount of time we get to be in this world.
Okay, Derek, hot or not, I think this is going to be a fun one. Smart cookies.
Smart cookies. Very hot. Yes, this is a
little bit of an inside joke, so to speak, but I'm teeing it up for you and using all the sports metaphors I can, teeing it up for you. Talk a little bit about smart cookies.
Yeah, I love it. Our team really takes a view of not only our immediate team, but the community that we're a part of, whether it's professionals, practitioners, or whether it's, true nonprofits, or whether it's, child-focused issues, and this concept of smart cookie kind of came out of this. So we want to hold events where we bring together insights and bring together different circles of people to come together and meet and learn. And so we've had a couple events but we've just now pivoted to the smart cookie concept. And we had an inaugural one that was really focused on AI and productivity and security. And there was security professionals, there was teachers, there was alumni of Kalles Group, existing team members, customers, partners. And so this smart cookie concept to me is really resonating, and not only drawing from what I think is insights Kalles Group can bring, but all the greatness of the community of practitioners and experts and businesses and people that we've worked throughout the years to come together to a smart cookie event. So I'm very hot on smart cookies.
I love the name. I think that's so fun. It's a great idea. So, all right, I'm going to pivot a little bit here. Hot or not, the Pac-12 conference.
Oh my goodness. Not, and deep sadness. I mean, where to start? You have a Pac-12 team make it into the college football national championship. You had multiple in the NCAA tournament, and yet the entire program has exploded. And I think my deepest sadness on it is the tradition that comes with the more geographically aligned conferences and what that's meant to people. My family has held season tickets to the University of Washington Huskies for over 50 years. And, we think about those histories with the Apple Cup and the risk that brings. And then the second is, and I don't know if this gets enough airtime, is what it's going to do to all these students having to travel all over the country. We talk a lot about football. We talk a lot about basketball. Football's once a week. Basketball's multiple times a week. What about volleyball? What about soccer? What about softball? And
I think that's a huge issue. I thought you and Dan might have some similar
Well, now
viewpoints on that.
we're going to change the direction of the podcast. For all of you wanted to hear any more about cybersecurity, join us later. We're going to go talk. And I'll just say really quickly, it's interesting that you say that, because as a high school golf coach, there's golf, there's college golf, and it's a big deal, and those rivalries are real. I actually thought Chip Kelly made a great point. He said that college football should become its own entity, create its own, like, 3 divisions, 4 divisions, and then leave everybody else alone. Let Washington play Arizona in volleyball, and Cal play Washington State in soccer, and all of that. So we'll have to make it through on a libation or something, and have some more conversation on that. I want to get one of my own last question before the next break. And I'm gonna take it out of the hot or not, because I'm just going to hear you wax poetic on this. Obviously, the pandemic took us to a new era of work on a remote hybrid basis. If I was an employee, I could work for a company in New Jersey or Miami, or heck, in Europe. I mean, it just changed everything. What kind of an impact on the cybersecurity world? I think I know, but I bet you I'm underestimating it. What kind of an impact has this post-pandemic world brought to cybersecurity?
it's had a large impact. I mean, there was already a notion of, call it, moving from the paradigm of security was, let's dig a moat, let's build a big wall, let's hire a couple dragons to sit at the top of that wall, and that's how we're going to protect ourselves, right? Then the pandemic happens, and it just further accelerated. There is no moat, there is no wall. The office is now, your basement, your garage, your bedroom, your proper office. It doesn't matter, right? And where you sit in the world even further doesn't matter. So that footprint for organizations, it really accelerated that paradigm of thinking of that cybersecurity isn't just your office. It is your office as it relates to all of these people and wherever they're at. And it further amplified a force that was already there around what's called third-party risk, all the partners that you have, and the different organizations that are part of you delivering your goods and services, to just further emphasize that the footprint is no longer within your walls. You have your data, you have your contracts, you have your efforts in partnership with lots of other organizations. You have to care about their security posture as it relates to your posture. You no longer get to define it within that fictitious wall that never truly existed. Was that poetic enough for you?
Poetic, perfect poetry.
Okay, because I didn't get too deep in the Shakespearean classes in college, so I was probably studying more of, what was the Pac-10, now the Pac-12, and now the Pac-0. So,
Derek, I'm going to tell you this. I remember the Pac-8. I'm just going to tell you that I
Pac-8.
remember the Pac-8.
So I'm curious, again, I saw you kind of light up when we talked about leadership. I think that's something that really sort of struck me. And I'm just wondering if you can share a little bit about your journey as an entrepreneur and kind of growing as a leader of your own company. Because that's a whole unique space, especially in something so dynamic as the area that you work in.
Wow. Yeah. The journey as an entrepreneur is full of highs and lows. And I think for me, and kind of formulating my leadership style has been, first and foremost has started with, an element of introspection, and just, how do I want to show up, and how do I actually show up, and what is that gap, and having that, and then bridging that gap, with surrounding myself with great leaders on my team, coaches, advisors, friends, fantastic organizations like Entrepreneurs Organization, and being able to use that to help continue to enrich, how I want to show up. I think about, it's funny, as a parent, you start to put these things through the lens of, how do I teach this to my kids? I answer that, I get this question. That's where my mind goes. How would I explain this to my daughter? Right. And it's kind of this conversation that her and I continue to keep having of, I'm less interested in, what you want to be and what you want to do in your life. I'm more interested in how you want to be. And I think that's something I try to bring my leadership back to when I make mistakes, when I have failures, when and to kind of grow from that. And I think leadership is a journey, right? It's not a destination, and that's a somewhat of a cliche, but I think that it's a very, very true thing of, and then you try to apply that to dynamic spaces like technology and learning and productivity and cybersecurity. And you kind of have to, you really have to bring that mindset, because you're going to turn around and be having a conversation or have to make a decision that you've never had to do before. And we're kind of all faking it, and then we die. So, it's that's what helps me sleep at
Thanks
night.
for that.
I know I haven't had my best leadership day. I'm like, you know what? I'm still learning and growing, and I'm going to make tomorrow a better day. So
that's a great answer, and it's a great segue into our final break, and then we're gonna hit the plead the fifth section. So we're gonna take a short break to hear from our sponsors, and when we come back with our guest Derek Kalles for our plead the fifth section of the show, we're gonna bring that Airstream into play. Don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank. And now back to the show.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Shrimp Tank, where we interview the best and brightest CEOs and business thought leaders in the greater Puget Sound area and beyond. I'm Michelle Bomberger here with Dan Weedin, and our guest today, Derek Kalles. We're going to now start our next segment, Plead the Fifth.
And plead the fifth, as you know, Derek, we're going to up the ante a little bit here. We're going to ask you some tougher questions. Not really too tough. We're going to see if you have to end up pleading the fifth at some point, but you can only do it once. So fair warning, only once. I mentioned your Airstream. I saw that in your bio. You have 2 young children, a family. I'm guessing that that's one of your fun things to do. So for plead the fifth, I don't want to hear about your most fun adventure. I want to hear, what is the wackiest, craziest, I can't believe that just happened story from your Airstream?
Oh, wow. Unfortunately, in Washington, there is a prevalence of forest fires. And we were coming back from a trip and got caught up around a forest fire. We were safe, but got stopped on an interstate when it was 100 degrees outside. And you can imagine what an interstate is like when it's 100 degrees outside and you've got trucks and other things continuing to run. And in my car, I have all 3 kids, and one of them, who's a young infant, still nursing with his mom. And it is so hot outside, and we were stuck there for 3 or 4 hours on a trip that ended up being 15-hour drive because of this, that we had to keep the car idling, get out of the car to try to just survive. We got young kids, and the only thing that saved us was there was a horse trailer next to us, and the owner had about 6 horses in there, and he needed to get the horses out of the trailer. And he brought all the horses out and fed and gave them water, and let all the kids from about a mile, and we're in the middle of a massive highway, freeway, interstate, come and pet the horses. So what was a horrible, horrible trip, we did get to pet horses in the middle of an interstate at about 110 degrees, and the horses were fine, and nobody was hurt. And
that's probably all the children remember.
That's right.
Oh, they remember, we've got to pet the horses. I wanted to ride the horses. And like, riding the horses with, a 20-mile backup and 100+ degrees, not a good idea. Let's just get them water and food, and let's pet them. So.
That's awesome. So looking back, what would you say to your 18-year-old self? What advice would you give them?
I have to debate. That's such a hard question. And do I plead the fifth, or do I answer it? Be present in the moment. I think I'm wired to just always be thinking about the future, what's next. Be present, and maybe be present and celebrate those moments, even if they're small. Don't have everything be what's next. What's next.
It's interesting you say that before I ask my question, because that's all that cyber is what's next. That's how I would think that that's a hard thing to get out of, because you're constantly looking on that. This question is one I like to ask people in many industries. I'm really interested to hear yours. Plead the fifth. What do you most dislike and like about the industry you're in right now? What do you most dislike and like?
What I like is cyber is one of these unique places where the only place that most companies compete is talent, because cyber professionals don't want to see organizations get attacked. They don't want bad things to happen to anybody. They want to share, collaborate, make it better. And I love the ethos of a cyber professional. It doesn't matter if you're in service, you're in product, you're in nonprofit, you're in a small company, it doesn't matter. The cyber professional is wired to say, let's share, let's help, let's stop the bad people. I'm going to plead the fifth on the part I dislike.
Wow, Michelle, this is open game for you now. He's out to plead the fifth, so I can't wait to hear this.
I think we go softballs, but
Oh.
all right. I love, this is one of our favorites. If you could take a hobby and turn it into a business, what would that business look like?
I don't know if I get to call it a hobby, though, because then it opens up many, many other questions. I shouldn't have probably used my plead the fifth. I've always dreamed of starting a winery. I love to drink wine. I don't know if drinking wine should be called a hobby. We'll leave that to another conversation. But
It's a hobby. I can
I
relate.
think we're all in agreement here. I think it's a very much a hobby, so go for it.
Yes, I love, when I just love the relational experience that comes from wine and getting to share it with people in a accessible, non-pretentious way. And, if anybody's ever been to a winery, or been in an experience with somebody that knows a little bit about wine, and just there's such an education element. There's such a want to share the art. There's such a tell me the history. I mean, this was my grandma's farm, and then we got the farm and made our first grapes, and the label is based on my farm dog. And I think back to some of my favorite jobs. Some of my favorite jobs were working in restaurants, and I just loved serving people. I love, generally, people come into a restaurant because they're happy and they're looking to experience something, and it's very similar to wine and having a winery. So if I could turn a hobby into a business, it would be, making wine, but also having a space that allows that just euphoric experience for a young couple, of an individual. It doesn't matter, just to be able to enjoy wine together.
Like I said, I learn something every time I do one of these shows, so I'm glad to hear that from you. So thanks so much for joining us on the Shrimp Tank today. For our listeners that want to get in touch with you or learn more about your company, how can they get more information?
Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn's always a great place to connect. Love to meet folks there, as well as people can email me, and it's Derek@kallesgroup.com. We do have strong security filters, so sometimes things get filtered to junk, even when you're awesome and I want to talk to you. So I would say it's probably a little of both. Connecting with me on LinkedIn is always a place that doesn't get filtered out, but I've got a good security team and they're doing their job, so I can't get too upset that things don't always make it into my inbox.
That's a good sign of your own companies doing what they preach to others. So as Dan mentioned at the beginning of the show, Kalles Group's website has an amazing wealth of information available to take a look at for businesses that are looking to figure out how to do this better. It is a risk that we're all sort of struggling with as the bad actors get more and more sophisticated. So for all of our listeners, check out Kalles Group, and make sure you check out all the replays at shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle, or wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, iHeart, Spotify, Stitcher, and follow our social media pages on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram.
Well, Derek, this has been a blast, and I'm going to make this commitment. We'll get together over a glass of wine or two, and we can talk Pac 8, Pac 10, Pac 12, whatever. We're both Huskies, so we can both
don't
do.
Forget golf. It sounds like you know a few things about golf, and I could always use some help in the golf.
Okay, now it's really a date. So can't wait to do that. Derek, thanks so much. This was a great time. The incomparable Michelle Bomberger. As always, it was excellent to have you on. Looking forward to seeing you again in April. Everyone, our next show will be on Wednesday, April 3rd. Our guest will be Jennifer O'Neill from Live Oak AV. We'll be glad to have Craig Swanson as my co-host that day. So listen, in the meantime, be safe, be well, and be prosperous, because until next week, the shrimp is back in the tank. So long.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.